Welcome back. The United States government has unveiled a new rule which could deny visas and permanent residency to hundreds of thousands of people for being too poor. Here's Simon Pusey with more international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. One of the world's busiest transport hubs has been brought to a standstill following a dramatic escalation in anti-government protests. Hong Kong International Airport was forced to cancel all departures after thousands of demonstrators occupied the terminal. They're taking a stand against a planned extradition law and claims of police brutality. Officials are working to restore services, but a backlog and further delays are expected.
My flight got cancelled the last minute, 1 hour before the flight time. And I'm frustrated. Nobody is helping. I mean, when you try to contact the airline, they put you on hold for such a long time. And then when they come in, they cannot help you.
It's a kind of inconvenience or selfishness caused to other people, but we cannot avoid this. It's somehow unavoidable because we fight for a final goal. That is our freedom.
The city's 10th consecutive weekend of protests was also marred by violence as police fired tear gas in an underground train station. They were then seen beating people with batons.
Hong Kong has just seen its darkest weekend in its contemporary history. We saw Kwai Fong Station being turned into a gas chamber, and protesters being pushed down a moving escalator by the police at Taikoo, where they had also fired at the protesters within a meter's range of an air gun. In Tsuen Wan and North Point, we also saw civilians being attacked by members of triads, whose actions were harboured and supported by the police.
Authorities have defended their actions in trying to control the crowds. Police also admitted undercover officers were disguised as protesters to assist with arrests. China says it's now time for a hardline crackdown. More than 40 people have been killed by Typhoon Lekima in eastern China. Carrying wind gusts of up to 185 kilometers an hour, the storm made landfall in Zhejiang on Saturday before traveling north through Jiangsu and Shandong provinces. More than 1 million people were evacuated from the affected areas. Around 36,000 homes and 900,000 acres of crops have been destroyed, with economic losses estimated at $2.5 billion. In southern and western India, monsoon flooding has claimed more than 140 lives. Nearly half of the reported deaths occurred in the state of Kerala. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced. The government has ordered military teams to man a rescue effort and airlift food to stranded villages. And wildfires are causing problems on the holiday island of Gran Canaria. They're being fanned by strong winds, and high temperatures are also hampering efforts to control the blaze. Around 1,000 people have been forced to flee the area, and troops have been drafted in to help firefighters. Mass funerals have been held in Tanzania following a fuel tanker explosion. The victims were trying to siphon petrol from the overturned vehicle when it burst into flames, killing at least 60 people and injuring 70 others. Emotions ran high as families buried their loved ones. Declaring 3 days of mourning, the country's president expressed his shock and sorrow and urged people to stop risking their lives by stealing fuel. A memorial service has been held for 5 Russian scientists who were killed in a mysterious explosion last week. An official at their research institute suggested they'd been working on developing a small nuclear reactor. Authorities have been drip-feeding information about Thursday's blast on a platform in the White Sea that caused a radiation spike in a nearby city. US-based experts suspect the explosion occurred during the testing of a nuclear-powered cruise missile. A man has appeared in court in connection with a gun attack at a mosque in Norway. 21-year-old Philip Manshaus is accused of opening fire at the Al-Noor Islamic Centre west of Oslo on Saturday. He was overpowered before he could kill anyone. Smiling with his face and neck marked with bruises, he now faces terrorism and attempted murder charges, as well as the murder of his stepsister, whose body was later found at a house. Indian security forces kept disputed Kashmir's biggest city of Srinagar largely on lockdown during the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha. Hundreds of people shouted anti-India slogans following the decision, which authorities say was made to prevent any major protests after the country scrapped the Himalayan region's special rights. And finally, die-hard K-pop fans will be disappointed to learn that boy band BTS is planning an extended break. After a series of global hits, the South Korean superstars announced they'll be taking their first long holiday in 6 years. They're asking people to respect their privacy if they see them in a chance encounter. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Many thanks, Simon. Now let's find out what's happening in the world of sports with Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Melinda. Super Eagles forward Harry Onyekuru has completed a permanent switch from Everton FC to AS Monaco FC. Onyekuru signed a 5-year deal which will keep him at the club until 2024. The 22-year-old couldn't play for the Toffees since his arrival from UPenn in June 2017, owing to his inability to secure a work permit in England. Less than 2 months after her WTA World #1 spot was taken from her by Ashley Barty, two-time major winner Naomi Osaka is back on top of the world. The US and Australian Open champion has regained the summit thanks to a run to the quarterfinals of the Rogers Cup, where Barty suffered a round of 32 exit. Boxing promoter Eddie Hearn says Andy Ruiz Jr. has signed to fight Anthony Joshua in Saudi Arabia, despite speculation that he has not committed to the bout. Hearn, who promotes Joshua, insists both fighters signed for this fight and that the governing bodies have been informed. His trainer, Manny Robles, says there's a reason why Ruiz has kept silent. England coach Eddie Jones has left experienced centre Ben Teo out of his 31-man World Cup squad and included uncapped winger Roarid Makanoche. Jones opted for only 2 scrum halves and the experienced Ben Youngs and rookie Willie Hines for the tournament in Japan starting next month. And that's a wrap on sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Many thanks, Ayo. And the main news again. The embattled leader of the Islamic movement in Nigeria, Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki, and his wife finally departed Nigeria today for India for medical treatment. Members of the Free El-Zakzaki movement have applauded the judiciary for granting the cleric's request. That's the news at 10 tonight. I'm Melinda Akinlami on behalf of the team. Good night.